What up, y'all? This is Daniel coming at y'all once again. If you guys watched my last video where we pulled out a stump from my front yard, we're going to be using a piece of that stump to make this serving platter, this epoxy river serving platter. So stay tuned in to check that out. Also, I have a brand new line of t-shirts that I'm now coming out with. So if you guys want to check that out, go ahead and sign up at my new website called mycraftsmanship.com. In this first part, we're going to be cutting a piece of that stump directly in half. Alright, looks like that works like a charm. Holy shit. That is some pretty grain right there. Right, so I just finished sending this through the planer, and needless to say, I am loving this piece already. I'm not seeing any cracks in it. It's looking like some beautiful wood. This is a beautiful chunk here. And check out this grain. That is beautiful. Check this out. I just wanted to take a quick shot of the clouds here. Check out how the sun is just lighting up the edge of that cloud there. That looks pretty incredible. That's a super thick cloud, milky white. So right here, we're just going to be using the radial arm saw to cut up this block into some lumber that we can glue together. I could have used the bound saw to cut this part, but I couldn't get my bound saw to make straight cuts, so we just used the radial arm saw instead. And here we have our 4 pieces, and what we're going to do next is, I think I came up with a good combination here. We're going to glue these 2 pieces together and glue these 2 together. Then we're going to sand this edge out, the seam line, and we're going to fill it with epoxy. And right here I'm basically just using a wire brush to take off all of the excess bark and whatever material is left on there. Trying to clean it up the best I can. And then I followed up with some sandpaper by hand to try to clean up the wire brush marks. And it works okay. A little bit difficult, but it works.
this point, you're going to want to use some Scotch tape, or alternatively, you can use some painter's tape to tape up your forms. And you want to do this to keep the epoxy from sticking to the form while doing your pour. That way it's much easier to take apart later on. And next we're going to do some brad nailing. We're going to get a little bit crazy with this. Damn son, look how beautiful it looks. That looks real good right there. We're going to go ahead and slide these right in just to make sure we have a good fit. Test it right out. At this point of the project, I used some caulking that I just found inside, which is a huge mistake. I should have used silicone instead, but I didn't have any on me. I just used the caulking because that's all I could find. That's all I had on me at the moment. Here in a minute when I do the epoxy pour, you'll see the caulking does not hold up as well as I wanted it to. We have some minor leakage. Not too bad, but that minor leakage could leak out all of your epoxy in a matter of time. So, in a matter of speaking, the caulking really sucks. I should not have used it.
Alright, so we have the form all completed here and put in place. We have the boards in. Let's see how she turns out.
And right here I'm using some lacquer to seal up the edges. You want to do this to keep the bubbles from coming out of the wood and into your epoxy. You don't want any bubbles accumulating in your epoxy because it'll harden up and those bubbles will stay in there.
We're back the next day. It looks like the finish has dried up real nice. I put 2 coats of lacquer on the edges, and I use lacquer because it dries quicker. I thought I was going to be able to do the pour last night, but the lacquer was taking a lot longer than I anticipated, so I just went to bed. We're back the next day, and we're going to go ahead and do the pour and see how it comes out. I went ahead and picked up some epoxy from my local exotic wood shop, and I got this pack of a bunch of different colors. I did some color experimenting last night, just mixing some of these with water, and I was most satisfied with the combination of the azure blue color and dragon red. So we're going to go ahead and do a mixture of these two inside our cup here. We have ourselves a HDX mixing container, and we're going to be doing our 2-to-1 ratio. Shit. I should really reshape these because look how much came over the side here. Now I understand you got to mix these real good without introducing new bubbles. I don't have a painter stick, so I'm just using some plasticware here. There's you see that white haze in there? You want to mix until you don't see any more of that white haze, or roughly around 5 minutes. Alright, I've been mixing this for a little bit over 5 minutes. I'm pretty sure it's ready. We're gonna start adding our pigments, and I'm just gonna go ahead and grab small pinches at a time until I am satisfied with the amount. Oh man, this is sticking everywhere. I'm gonna try to get that right in the center, just so you guys can see that. Now I'm trying to mix this as gently as I can so that I don't accidentally introduce any more air bubbles. That looks beautiful. I may have to add a bit more of each one. Wow. That looks beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and do some swirls, see if we can get some patterns in here. Let's get some up close shots of this. So I've been inspecting this thing for about 10 minutes now, and there is some very minor leaks here on the bottom, and it's only been sitting for about 10 minutes. We have a little bit of saturation right here. So I went ahead and pulled out some Flex Seal right here. We're gonna go ahead and patch that right up. However, this stuff has been sitting in storage in my house for like I don't know how many years, and it is almost solid dry. So I had to cut out this big cube here and get to the good stuff there at the bottom, because if that started getting saturated after only 10 minutes, imagine after 8 hours. That's
I ended up doing this pour in the rain, which is super satisfying in my opinion. I just love listening to the sound of the rain. And we're back the very next day doing the third and final pour, which came out really good. I get some very beautiful shots of it right here. And just as a heads up, I do some swirls just for the shot. It really doesn't do nothing right off the bat because epoxy continuously mixes by itself over time. And I'll go ahead and give you guys a shot to see what that looks like. What you want to do to get the swirls to stick is come back 6 to 8 hours later and then do your swirls. And that should get the swirls to stay for the most part, but I didn't really get them to stay on this project as well as I wanted. And here's that shot to show you guys exactly how much epoxy mixes by itself over time, which is a lot. I think this is roughly like a 4-hour time lapse, more or less.
Our epoxy is now dry, and we are ready for the next step. Here's what the bottom looks like. A lot of the epoxy seeped into the bottom. That's okay. We're gonna go ahead and plane all that right off.
Right here you'll notice I glued some boards to the ends to keep the planer from tearing out the ends when I run it through.
You'll notice where the blade hit here on the very edges, right where I glued the board. This part itself doesn't chip off since this is end grain, so that's why I put this piece right here. Alright, so far so good. This thing is coming out really good. I'm liking it. We got all the epoxy planed off of the bottom portion and the top. We are now done with the sanding process. I started at 180 grit and worked all the way up to 400 grit, and it's looking beautiful. This is the bottom side, and I am loving it. Look how all the chips just stick to my arm. That's pretty cool.
And here I want to do what is called a French polish, which is a finish done with shellac. If you guys are interested to know how this process is done, just let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to make a video on it. Also, this is kind of more of just a test to see how I like it once it's done. I may not leave the French polish on here. If I don't like it, I'm just going to sand it back off or plane it back off and do some regular polyurethane instead. Here we basically start off by rubbing on some super duper thin layers. We are thinning out with some denatured alcohol and applying it one thin layer at a time. This process takes several hours. I think I spend like 2 hours here and another hour and a half the next day or something like that. You can easily put on over 100 layers in a single session doing this. Then we finish it off by sanding it down to 2000 grit. I started off by hand, but I do move to the palm sander in a little bit. And then we do one last layer to get it as flat as we possibly can. And that is the final product. We have a nice, beautiful glass finish. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, comment, rate, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. Thank you guys for watching.